Welcome into another episode of the Power Hour. I am Steve, along with the urban sensation, C-Red, the icon. And joining us tonight at long last, perhaps our most overdue episode. I've been waiting and negotiating work schedules to have this man on our show. I've known this man a long time, my entire professional wrestling career. So it is great to have him on the show as a singles act. Finally, he was part of our Case of the Rest of the Missing Wrestling Ring panel once upon a time. And now we'll talk about that. And now he's back. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him every Wednesday night from the Demigod Project. You know him from Basement of the Dead. He is, of course, Zamiel. You, of course, know Zamiel from Global Professional Wrestling. You know him as a member of the Plague. You know him as a stand-up comedian. You know him as a all-around shit stirrer.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He is gracing us with his presence tonight. It is the incomparable Jarod Priest.
How's it going, everyone? How's it going, Steve? How's it going, C-Red?
Okay, all right. You finished giving that name. I don't want to hear that name.
Nobody wants to hear it. Well, it's just that's that time of year.
I don't care. I don't want to hear that name.
Zamiel time.
I
don't. Well, I see you have the Superman shirt on, C-Red. At least you're trying to bring some kind of hopeful courage to this conversation. Little known fact to everybody who's watching this, you know, he's cool with me like this. But when Zamiel comes out, he's just like, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. It's just like, no matter what, in the makeup, everything, he is just wants nothing to do with me. Where's C-Red at? I don't know. He's high.
Runs for the hills.
Dude.
Runs for the hills to quite cover it.
Because I've never seen
back. Even when we're backstage, when the makeup is on, he just wants nothing to do with anything. And we've known each other for how long now? Very long time. But whenever that makeup's on, you are gone.
Dude, I've never seen it. You know, method actors, you know, they get into costume and they, you know, and then they become the character. Hell, Priest.
This is true.
The crazy part is he could be like cracking jokes and then start putting it on and he's cracking jokes and everybody ha ha ha, and then you look over and it's just like, oh hell no, I can't do this.
A dark cloud just comes over me.
And it's like, I'm good. I am good. I don't need that in my life.
It really is. It really is pretty impressive when you put that makeup on, you become somebody else altogether. And then after you've done your thing, you're still in the makeup before you clean it off and you return to being you. And it's a very uncomfortable experience for those around you because it's your friend Jarod Priest talking to you, but you're still in your getup and it's like Jesus fucking Christ, man, this is too intense.
Well, it is method acting, yes. What I usually do to get into that character, I recite a line from a movie. For those horror buffs, it was from the movie Warlock. And it's a curse that the Warlock puts on this young girl where she basically ages rapidly. And it was just a spell he puts on, and it's this line that helps me get into the linguistic part of the character. It just puts me in such a space. It's tout, thrown about your cowering life in dismay. Rencum osculentum, a decade twice in a day. And that usually helps me get into that mode very quickly. And that is a character that has been with me for a very long time. So putting it on, it's just a switch. But I don't understand the other method actors who are like, I must go to the mountains and decompress for like 3 months because I lived and breathed this character. Come on. It's like the whole thing even with Jared Leto, with all the stuff he did when he was playing the Joker in the Suicide Squad movie. I'm like, come on. I mean, there's a switch you just turn off. and just when you're done, you're done. But I don't know. To me, I know what I need to do, how I need to get there, and once it's done, and then there's like an old Ren Fair, because I used to perform at the Ren Fair, line that would say or something like that to get me out of the voice. It'd be very weird. It'd be like something like the Pop Tarts are in the Dodge Charger, and it just like automatically, okay, I'm back to myself. So
I know Zamiel was born as a character in your haunt life, and a couple of guys thought it would be great to bring him into the wrestling world, but I don't think you ever expected in your wildest dreams how great that would be, because that character was so over, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. A little background about that character, okay? Keep in mind that my father is the reason why I got into like the haunt industry, and my father would dress up as the classic Van Hammer films of the Christopher Lee Dracula, and he actually got makeup tips from the man himself, Vincent Price, years ago. And so he would dress as the old Hammer films, Christopher Lee Dracula. And of course, that's one of the first accents I ever learned to do, was a Transylvanian accent, because when my father would slip into character, he would have no problem doing the Transylvanian accent. So it was not a problem for me to pick it up easily. So that's why I get a kick out of like the Van Helsing version. It's so accurate with that actor doing that, because it's just a little more direct. Do not stress how important it was to do it. We deal with the Valerios. So like it's the same thing. And my brother fell in the same path. He wanted to dress up like a vampire and all this stuff like this. And I'm like, I wanted to be a character that was so jarring, so offset, that it was my own, because I wanted to be something of my own. And that's how Zamiel started going through that gestation period of trying to find a character that was so visually like catch you off guard, but also mess with your mind on a level. And it just was one of those things where when the character finally came to pass, because believe it or not, the voice itself is a derivative of Malcolm McDowell's character from A Clockwork Orange. I don't know how many people have seen that.
I never really put that together. That's interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Why would you harm me, brother? I wouldn't call you no harm, brother. I was like some dude Rick Vaughn, brother.
You got me. I should have seen that a mile. God.
So if you put a demonic twist on it, now you have this one. Hello, Seared. I hope you're doing quite well. So, yeah. So that character, like, I've been asked this before, even in the days of PCW, to bring that character to the ring. And for a long time, even in CTW, same situation. For a long time, I'm like, no, I like to keep things separate. My haunt life separate, my wrestling life separate, my personal life separate. I was so animate about keeping my life like individually, just on those degrees separate.
Compartmentalize it.
Yeah, compartmentalize. Yeah, compartmentalize. I can't speak today. But compartmentalize. But anyway, finally, it took Mitch Blake to like basically, you need to bring that here. We need to see that character here. You got to do it, dude. You got to do it. And I'm just like,
hear that voice in my sleep.
But the thing was, when I did it, I'm like, okay, you know what? I will do it. I will prove a point that like this character, yeah, I know how this character is. I don't know how this audience is going to respond to it. But when I put the makeup on, and then when I got the character, and I'm about to go out and as that character, I had this terrible thought. I'm like, okay, on one side, these people would be, would not understand the character or may even reject the character. And I would have been fine with it because it would have been a separate universe. But this fear creeped into my head going, what if it's the opposite? What if people love this character so much that you cannot break away from it now? You're stuck with being able to put in this position of the character. And I'm like, well, Well, let the pieces fall where they may. And soon enough, I went out there, and I guess I caught completely everybody off guard. You were there the night when you saw the transition from
Yep.
Jarod Priest to the character. I mean, what do you think was the general audience's response?
Well,
Since
it
you
was,
were there witnessing it firsthand.
I mean, it was everything. You know, we all had high hopes because we all love the character and we all love when you do the voice. And, you know, for everybody backstage, it was, you know, we knew that it would go because our audience was so character driven, and this was a character unlike anybody else. And you were doing a program with Rob, and I you know, that was the perfect vehicle for that. You know, the torment, you know, and it worked so well, and that crowd just went crazy.
Yeah, they got to see something like the big thing for me for the character itself. It had to be otherworldly. That's the thing that I've always wanted to push for when I do that at the haunt. Like I haven't even done half of the disturbing stuff that I do at the haunt. I haven't even brought it to Zamiel to the ring. There's some creepy things that I randomly do that it's meant to be, like I said, otherworldly. I do this sound with my mouth where it sounds like I'm just like the best thing I can do is like it's like the demonic sucking of air. It's just like, let's see if I can do it here. It makes the noise. And I crack my jaw and everything like that. And
A
you're
little
walking
Hannibal
by just
Lecter.
going,
It's very Hannibal.
kind of
Lecter.
Hannibal Lecter in a way. Yeah, very much like that. There'd be stuff like that I do is just very, like I said, the important thing, like, and as any performer, especially if you're playing out like the supernatural character, it has to come across to the everyday common folk or the sea red types as otherworldly. So, so they don't have a chance to respond rationally, just emotionally. Sorry, sea red.
It is an incredibly visceral character. And,
Mhm.
you know, you had grown men, like you had them on the edge of their seat. I mean, they had no idea you were so unpredictable. And, you know, the great thing about the Zamiel character is the random movements. Like you're kind of walking and then all of a sudden it's like blam. You know, you have that whole haunt. The best things about the haunt, that industry, are the jump scares, because, you know, it's you know, it's the rapid, very quick things you're not expecting around the corner. So you're just slowly going to the ring, and all of a sudden you explode right into a fan's face, and that's shocking. And I saw make some people cried that first night because they weren't ready for the experience. But you know, by the time GPW had run its course, you know, Zamiel had been a champion. He factored into the big grand finale, the N-words versus the plague. I mean, that character, a lot of what happened at GPW wouldn't have happened without that character being the main character in the story we were trying to tell.
Right. I still love the phrase or the comment that I said to Acid Jazz. Oh my God. I put him on his ass, and I'm just literally going, "Welcome to the party, Jazz." And it's just like, lines like that just stick with you. Not to mention the fact that like that was such a great match to be a part of, because you had, you know, Bryce Benjamin, you had Marche Rocket, you had Jazz, and you had Bow, and you had Fallout Ace Bradley and Zamiel. All these guys with at least, we're talking decades and decades upon decades of experience, and to have everybody congregate in a way to make that match tell a story. And we also, like, there were people that were not familiar with some of the people that were involved into the match, and to be able to tell a story where it just showcases the people they haven't seen yet and bring it together and bring it to the audience, I thought was like, it shows like the actual experience that people use to, you know, their in-ring ability and all the years they have obtained this type of stuff, and all these creative minds come together. It just made the match incredible and entertaining to watch at the same time and be a part of, you know, because you're telling a story. I get knocked down, Zamiel gets knocked down, I grab a can of soda and I just squeeze it right there, like out of anger, and you have the audience just going, "Oh no," like something bad was coming. Or you've got the, Bryce Benjamin and Jazz dragging away Marche, and they're saying these are real. We got to get out of here. And like stuff like that. It was a great match, and it was a great time in GPW doing that run with Zemiel. It was a lot of fun.
That was an incredibly accelerated storyline that was extremely painstaking to accomplish, because I knew that it was ending. And as the guy that was doing a lot of the work, booking it and creating it and dealing with the storylines, I knew that I wanted that last match, because I knew it was the end. I wanted it to be something that everybody would say, my God, we've been watching these guys for such a long time, but we've never seen it like this. And I really wanted that to come across badly as the last thing I did as a promoter, booker, idiot person that I was at the time. And you guys were patient with someone who was doing it for the first time. And I stumbled many times over those 4-month period, but you got me where I wanted to go, which I will always be grateful for, because you knew what I was trying to do and you gave me what I was looking for. So at the end of the company's run, we really left something special, I think, for our fans.
And also not like finished yet. There was more meat on the bone, because the way that it was left, that battle between the Plague and the N-words was far from over. And whoever is company was able to pick up on that could really capitalize on that particular feud. I mean,
yes, I know
that is far from
I'm
over.
very well aware of that. And yes, there's always something working somewhere.
Yeah, that is that. I can tell you right now, if Marche is watching this, he knows it's far from over. It's far from over. And if ever, I'm sure that it would definitely jump at the chance to be able to do that again.
You never know what's going to happen. There are a lot of places doing good work now that could find those characters easily showing up. So I, again, never say never. You
neglected one thing though.
Tell me.
When during your stint as being a booker, you remember the one time that you actually caught my ire and
yes,
you upset me.
I learned an incredible lesson that I still employ to this day. So sometimes if you're going to make if you make an omelet, you're going to break some eggs, and I broke the wrong eggs that night.
Yes, and you learned a big lesson, but me being upset with you in that situation, because to give everybody context, we had creative differences about certain things.
We did.
And I was trying to basically, anybody who's in this business, you understand one thing, okay? You have to tell a story. Okay, you have to have the story make sense, and you have to have a follow a certain path. I hate some of the attitude of some of the younger generation who think, oh, I just got to go out there and I just got to showcase everything I got. I'm going to blow my whole load on this whole thing and add 5 super kicks in the match. And the problem is when you even have, if you can find it, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels all in a podcast, all talking at the same time about how funny the super kick has been abused in the business. If these guys are saying that, that should say something to you. The important thing is that you have to have individuality and have a difference that is not like anybody else, and you have to be indifferent so you don't compare to other wrestlers' business. I don't care if so-and-so did this move or so-and-so this move. There are thousands of moves in this business, and people want to cling to certain things. And there are certain stories that people want to tell. But the important thing is you got to go in there and make it look like it's a fight, and you have to have a reason behind it and a purpose behind it. And you have to look at all the variables in order to make that possible. I know when you and I butted heads with this, we had creative butting into heads because I know what's important that you have to translate to the audience. And I can't exactly the circumstances with the situation, but I'm glad that, you know, you heeded my advice on that and learned from that. So I'm glad that that happened and you were able to apply that further on through your time in this business.
Hey, you know what? We can all learn something. And see Red being a teacher. Now, Red, both of you have been in this business for a long, long time. Tell me your experiences with Jarod Priest, whether it be with the Demigod from PCW, whatever incarnation he may have been at the time. Tell me how your experience with this man, because I know I love Uncle Red stories, and I know there has to be a Jarod Priest story in Uncle Red's library.
Jarod and I always and still to this day we still have a mutual respect and love for each other. The problem I think came in was a problem that we didn't even create. There was a saying on the Chicago scene: friends don't let other friends work at PCW. So,
oh God, here we go.
but again, so when you know,
Oh boy,
you know what's so wrong
what
about
what did my predecessors do before me? All right, lay it
but
on
the
me.
crazy, like again, so I didn't know what was the big deal. And again, so when I got in, I was kind of the rebel against Sam's rules because to me,
Oh, man.
if it didn't make sense, it just didn't make sense. So my very first out appearance as C Red, and I wasn't booked, was Dream Night. And again, they had the Road Warriors there, and everybody knows that I love the Road Warriors. So I go. And I watched the show. And the crazy part, like you could see all these indie workers, they're there. And like I couldn't see what was the issue with PCW. I really couldn't. So probably a couple of months later, ran into Jarod at another show, and Jarod was so cool. Like, and I didn't expect that because again, he's a bigger guy than me, you know. So I tend to think that most bigger guys than me are complete assholes. And you know, he walked up, he was like, "Hey, I'm Jarod." And I'm like, I know who you are. I'm C Red. He was like, "I know who you are." And it was like, that was it. You know, and it was like I didn't have, you know, like the one thing that I loved about Priest is how I would always try to figure out, like, he puts his body through so damn much. And to be the size he is, yet he moves like
a ninja.
I'm not gonna say a ninja because you can't see a ninja, or you're not supposed to see a ninja. But he moves around like, you know, a lightweight, a middleweight, whatever. And it was like, damn, like I want to be like that, you know, because it was like I had never seen somebody his size in Chicago take a bump, get right back up, take a bump and feet, take a bump and feet, and it was like shit. Like the guy, I mean, as much as I love Willie wasn't pumping the feet and like that. And
I might be able to provide a little clarity about that, but please continue.
Well, I don't know if you had to go to the bathroom or what. I'm just, you know, again. But I mean, so Jarod, so then of course we got to work together at CTW. And to me, that was like a dream come true because I got to work with people again that at one point you were told you were forbidden, you know, to go see. And then like I don't even know if Jared remembers this. So PCW had brought in Sting.
That show. Oh, that
Hey,
show.
hey,
No, it's not. It's not that. I was just thinking about that show, and it was, in my opinion, it was the final nail in the coffin for the company because little did people know there was a massive rainstorm that happened that night, and the parking lot at the Oaklawn Pavilion was flooded. People's cars were flooded, and I think that affected the draw. And
well, I was there.
that was rough. That was rough. That was
I was
yeah.
there. And I'm proud to say I was there because again, so anybody again that knows me knows I love Sting. So it's Shawn Michaels, it's Sting, it's the Road Warriors. That's my top three. It will never change. I don't give a damn what nobody says. But PL had invited me. So I went. And you just swore up and down like I worked for PCW. Like outside of Renee, who was a young rookie, and I don't even remember Miles. That's the funny part. You know, Jared came out, was like, "What's up, C-Red?" And it was like, "What's up?" You know, and I found myself like in an awkward position because I no longer I didn't see Jarod Priest of PCW. I saw, there go my friend. And I saw, you know, Tom Heisman. And I like I'm seeing all these guys that I've worked and been around for years. And it was like, it was the best feeling. It was the best feeling because you got to see your friends actually do their craft. So I didn't have to sit back and be like, you know, oh, I'm working for another company. Let me tell you. No, I got to sit back as a fan and as a friend and watch my friends do their thing on their biggest night, you know. And so I've always had love and respect for Jarod. Then we went to Global. And again, you know, like I said, so I love Jarod. I hate Samuel. That's just again, I know people are sitting at home right now. I understand people in overseas. You're wondering how, why. He seems like a nice. He is a nice guy. He's a very nice guy. But when he puts the and then he turns around and he, hello, Steve. No, dude, no. You know, we were just talking. We were just two friends, just talking, and now you all in character, and it's like people. And this is the thing: people think Pennywise is like creepy and scary. No, if I had a game, I'm Pennywise versus Samuel, and Samuel is mopping the floor with Pennywise.
Yeah.
Now
Pennywise is a pussy.
now once Pennywise changes into that whatever thing it was at the end of the movie or whatever. Oh, I'm sorry if you didn't see the movie. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Then that's a different story. But Pennywise the clown.
But we don't know what Zamiel could turn into in that.
And I don't want to find out.
Find out.
I don't want to find out. And
I have an entire background about that character. I created an entire background about that
we
character.
don't need to know.
So it's the haunt season, and are you partaking in the haunt in 2021? I know that I think you missed it because of the pandemic last year.
I'm still like sidelining myself because of the pandemic, because let's be honest, people don't do well with fear. And mix that with what our current climate right now, it gets more uncomfortable. And I feel like people are like, you got to understand, I'm in a controlled environment as it is. And I hear all these stories. Like when I used to be a performer at the Bristol's Renaissance Fair, there would be cast members I worked with that would work Fright Fest at Great America. And Great America tried to get their claws in me years ago. And I declined. But there would be these group of characters that would dress up like trolls, and they would dress up in armor and all this stuff like that. They would tell me horror stories of how patrons would try to tase them or attack them and stuff like that. And that's just in that type of environment where there's a lot of people around. You don't have anybody watching your back and everything like that. I heard all these horror stories from cast members from there. You add that with today's climate and how people respond with the virus alone. You've probably seen enough alone about this, how people are responding to our current climate. And it's a bad mixture. And then you got to remember too, is that I've been doing the haunt industry for 30 years.
30 years.
30 years is a long time. And like every time there would be something like during the summer, I would perform at the Ren Fair. Then I would, go into the haunt season. Then I would try to, get my education during the off seasons and all these different things. Like then when I got older, it was still adding things to other stuff, would pile things onto my life. There was always different things going on. And so being able to be put in the situation where I've tried to mentor a lot of these younger actors, because I look at the fact of I can't be doing this forever. And I wanted to try to prepare the next generation. And a lot of times you're dealing with people who are haunters, who are in that industry, that are very young. And unfortunately, their brains are not completely developed. And to put it so politely.
As we find out every Wednesday night on the Demigod Project.
I don't know what you're talking about. But those are straight up lies, sir. But the fact of the matter is this, is that I've tried to educate some of the younger people, and unfortunately, they prefer to take on drama and cause drama and be in the center of drama, because that's how their life is at that time frame. Because when you get older, you start understanding how petty and unimportant those things are. And I've always tried to maintain a professional decorum. I've tried. And the biggest thing is those kind of things is like, I have to talk with the higher ups before I decide to make my return. I've had people dropping me messages like, when you coming back, and you'll be welcome back with open arms. And it's just like, I felt like in the last couple years, like the way that people have been behaving, it's like I am trying to be generous and do all these different things and try to help people, like in the same fashion when I would be teaching people in wrestling. And once again, people have a tendency to misconstrue my intentions, or they think the worst in you. And I hate that part, and I hate those kind of things. And it makes it very frustrating when you're trying to pass on some knowledge to people and trying to help them. Some people got it. Other people are trying to make it some sort of like other nefarious, dark undertone. And it really it's upset me, because I've done all this good stuff. I have a lot of people in the industry that I have taught, my students that are carrying on, the company or my training. And I've seen them blossom and grow into the great individuals that they are. And I'm trying to translate that into the haunt industry. And I got people acting like sniveling little drama queens. And that's also the price you pay for working with actors sometimes, because they have a tendency to put their emotions on their sleeve. I do want to wind back to what Sierra was talking about in the days of PCW. Because what C-Red is talking about is at that period of time, from what I know about the history of PCW, I literally got in on the ground floor when it became PCW. What happened was there were people that broke away from, Windy City and started PWI, and then PWI ran for a little bit, and then it became PCW. And you got to understand that the business was very different back then, extraordinarily different. C-Red can verify this for me. Back then, you had a commission, and only a few promotions were up and running. And so anybody that back then that was running at the time would be considered the enemy, because people they feel like if another promotion existed, it would take the revenue or take talent away, and you know it would affect the brand. And people were very territorial and protective back then, to the point where even people would go out of their way to try to sabotage shows. That's how bad it was back then.
It still happens.
It still happens, but when you have the commission around, which I don't even understand how people say, well, they need to bring the commission back. Bring the commission back. And here's the part that where the wrestler and the business side, because when I trained for a couple years, and then I became an investor to the company, and I got to see the business side of the industry. And when the commission existed, you had to pay a fee to run a show. You had to pay for the referees and the medical attention. You would also have to give up a portion of your gate to the commission. So basically, the situation of making money on a show was very, very difficult to ascertain and to obtain. And then obviously before a show, you would be inspected by, making sure you're physically able. They would check your blood pressure. They would do all this different stuff to make sure that you are physically able to wrestle. When finally the commission disbanded, because if I remember correctly, there were some certain dealings that brought attention where it was forced to disband, then anybody and anyone could open their doors and be a wrestling promotion back then. And it basically, in my opinion, saturated the market. For those who keep on saying they should bring the commission back, it's like you're asking for a giant A-bomb to go off in the independent scene, where all these promotions would be gone. And you're probably going to be a one or two, maybe three promotions probably left in its wake. And you're basically limiting your financial success as a worker. You are also hurting yourself for opportunities to work. And it was just all these different things that people want to talk about, that, like, unless you were running things back then, you would not have been able to understand what it was like back then having the commission around.
That is, that's the kind of stuff that someone that hasn't been in the business as long as you guys, I was a fan back then. I went to shows back then, but I had no idea what was going on behind the backstory. And Red talks about it often, how now and then are vastly different animals. And I remember I came into PCW right at the tail end, the last three shows, from Grave Matters with the Nasty Boys all the way through the Christmas show with Ricky Steamboat. So that was my experience, and it was great. And I tell the story of Heisman versus Capri, and every time I tell it, he falls through another table off the balcony. I'm at 28 tables now. So you would
I would love to comment on the night of that show. I mean, see, Red, I hope you're ready to hear this one.
I'm ready.
That was the last one, and after that, it was gone.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about that. Like, people always ask about, why did PCW close? What were the reasons behind the company closing, and all this different stuff? And I would like to clarify this, and keep in mind that what happened with Dream Night really took a lot of wind out of people's sails. But when it came to a point where it was then came the show with Ricky Steamboat. Ricky Steamboat was a suggestion of mine to bring in for the show, and I was been a fan of Ricky Steamboat ever since I was a kid. But I found out right before the show started that night was going to be our last night. And the main motivations were the people that were part of the investment group. They were ready to go home. Some of them wanted to be with their families. Some of them just wanted to be done with the business, and some just wanted to be done with it. And unfortunately, me and a couple other people had the luxury of finding out about the company closing right before all the students or the younger people in the business found out. And throughout the entire show, I know that I had this deep pit in my stomach that I was so upset, but I was trying my best to keep on a brave face for everybody. I was trying to, get through the show. And I was just very much upset. I remember one time, if I remember correctly about the building, there was a downstairs that led to this lower area where people were talking about their matches or whatever. I just remember I was down there. I just took a second and I was just trying to collect myself. I remember I was so mad. I kicked a trash can across the room. And then basically got it done that night. And then once the ring was loaded, once everyone was together, they brought everybody together in the room and decided to tell everybody the show is over and done with. Company's closing. And then offered everybody to come to a bar where everybody could celebrate drinks with drinks and stuff like that being paid by them. And I don't hold any anger or animosity towards the individuals. I understand there comes a point where everybody reaches their limit and they want to go. Okay, that's just how it goes. They just want to be done with it, and I'm not going to hold that against them. I just believed in, to me at the time, I believed in the company so much. I believed in the product so much. I was so passionate about like the company, very much a big company man. And I cared about it so much. And then just to have the rug pulled underneath me, it broke my heart. And there were a lot of young guys at that time frame who were training, that were paying dues. There were guys that's now put in a position where they had no idea where they were to go get their training. They were so disheartened. There were a lot of guys that were in the business, like that were back then in the locker room. They could go anywhere. They were well trained, but there were young guys in that situation that were, in essence, without a home. And it broke my heart. I was on my ass about it. And then there was a situation of offering, because I know there's gonna be people watching this going, but he could have bought the company. There was an issue of basically the company was put up for sale, and me and a couple other people were asked to go ahead, and if we wanted to carry on with the company, we can buy it. And I took the time to think about it for a moment, and that's when it came to the realization that I knew that PCW had to close. It had to be done. And I felt like if we did buy the company, I felt that we'd be taking on the sins of our fathers, or in this situation, the sins of our predecessors, because with all the good that came from that company, there were some issues, in my opinion, that cause a lot of disdain, which causes a lot of especially a lot of the commentary that C-Red is talking about, that was brought on by certain behavior or antics of other people. And I can understand where it had that disdain. I even got caught in the undertow of some of that stuff, because there's some situations involving a certain female wrestler in particular who decided that our relationship was done. And I'm basically, in a nutshell, trying to carry on with this company. And when it's hard, when one of your buddies that you called a brother was trying to meddle with your personal life, to put it plainly. And it always seemed like there was always this rumor mill about, if you want to hurt Priest, you got to get to his girl. And there was people that the one thing you got to remember too is the indie scene is extremely high school and extremely petty, and they will try to hurt you in ways that there's people in this industry. There are so many good people, but every once in a while, peppered within these people, there are some fucking assholes that are very much a schadenfreude people who enjoy the pain watching people go through shit. It's happened, that whole situation where someone going after my girl, that happened to me twice in the industry, both times in PCW. And it was very difficult to carry on with that kind of situation. But I can understand how a lot of people wanted to have animosity towards a company, and there's some issues that people have brought on themselves. But I will never forget when I decided that I was not going to pursue the ownership of the company. I drove to one of their houses, one of the owners' houses, to give them my keys, and I knew what I had to do. I had to cut ties with all these people, and it was very difficult because I was family to a lot of these people. I consider them family as well, but I knew that if PCW was done and these people, either at one point in time I've always butted heads with or had issues with, or there was some sort of connection, I knew I had to walk away from it. And I remember handing the keys and saying, I'm not going to pursue the ownership of the company. And I knew I gave them a hug. And I was doing my best to fight back the tears because I knew that I was probably not going to see these people again. And it sucks to make a little type of decision like that, because these were people that all I knew. These guys were I worked with, I bled with, I sweat with, I did what I could to, to pull my weight, and everybody was a family to me. But I just felt it was very important to walk away from it and cut ties with a lot of these people. And it was very difficult and very painful, but I knew it was a necessary thing I had to do. And then came the whole thing with GPW. And I owe this a lot to Rob and Tom, is that I was very much beside myself for a period of time. And then they started working with Antoine over at CTW. I'm sorry, I said GPW, I meant CTW. Then we were given a new home, and I was offered to train. And one of the biggest things I wanted to do was correct the mistakes of what happened with PCW, where we were able to recover some of our students and give them a full-fledged training. I took it upon myself. I didn't even care if I got paid. That was the important thing about that, is that I wanted the people who got slighted in that whole situation with PCW closing, that these people got a proper training. I completed Renee's training, Miles's training, Jack Moody's training. Moody was probably in Moody was the perfect example of, I had all the tools, and the best part was I knew exactly how to build him and put him in the position to make him a very successful worker. I knew what was needed to be done to get him to the next stage. And he, in my opinion, is the final end product of all those years of teaching and training, that he was so easy to obtain that knowledge. And as we all know, Jack Moody is quite a figure in the indie scene.
He is still thriving at CSW, I'm happy to say.
And I'm always ultimately proud of him and all my other students.
And Miles is thriving. Might be one of I hear people talk about Miles that run places that I work, and they always talk about him with such passion, being so good at what he does. And I remember at the early days of CTW, where he was the king of the pre-show,
the Kang
of the pre-show. And
yeah.
Now he's a main event player and doing big things. I see the ARC. I see the triangle.
Yes. But here's the thing about, especially with Miles, I'm very proud of him. He's a man who sticks to his roots. He sticks to who he is, grounded as an individual, and he's a great worker. And he's always proven that time in and time out. And the biggest thing for me is that people need to really see that about him. Don't be deceived by, how he carries himself, because that boy can work. He can bust his ass, and he'll do what he can to make sure that you will remember his name. And I'm very proud of Miles. And we helped create the name, and that is such a great name, as Miles Mercer.
He had
So,
a particularly great showing this past Saturday at SCW WrestleTopia 2. He, John Hudson, and Christopher St. Michael got together in a hell of a triple threat match.
cool. Good. I'm very proud of him for pulling that off. Also, C-Red, you mentioned about how my movement was in the ring. There is a certain, I'm a big fan, back from the younger days, I was a big fan of Kung Fu movies, like Samurai Sunday, Samurai Showdown, stuff like that. And the one thing that stood out was Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung. These guys, Sammo Hung is a very large man, but he was very agile. And that was helping from the years of the Peking Opera School where they got their training. And I was like, I'll be damned if I cannot have the same type of agility level as a lot of as a big man. I can prove that I can be as agile as a skinny cruiserweight type and do it with my size. And that's where a lot of that inspiration came from, was from the old Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung like type of movements and stuff like that you see in the old kung fu movies and stuff.
So you've taken a bit of a hiatus, not only from the haunt, but we haven't seen you in a wrestling ring. Any interest in getting back in?
Yes. Everybody's thinking I'm done. I'm what, a demigod is not allowed to go ahead and kick back for a little bit?
Well, I mean, these are the questions. I mean, this is where
Well, it's a fair question. I'll say it's a fair question because I know people want to know when I'm coming back. You know, if promoters want to get a hold, because for example, there was a promoter trying to get a hold of me and wanted the Zamiel character. But the thing is, I got to remember, I'm not some green worker. Okay, I've been in this business for 20 years, and if I have a certain rate to pay me for me in this business, especially if you want that character, it's not about, oh well, you get exposure. I'm not a young guy. Okay, you want me to work like this? This is my rate. You know, and if you want to negotiate, we can negotiate. But if you're going to try to treat me like a young guy in this industry, which so many guys fall victim to, I will not, budge on that. But I mean, obviously, I want to get back out there. I know there's a lot of people that want Zamiel in their company, which is like, Jesus, there was a guy that existed long before that. But
the kendo stick wielding demigod was as much as I love the Zamiel character, there's just something classic about a kendo stick wielding Jarod Priest as the demigod.
Well, first of all, I've been pissed about how many people use the kendo stick improperly.
Yes.
That's the one thing that annoys the shit out of me. Yeah, I'm so animate about that. Learn how to use the damn thing. It's not a baseball bat, and it's a slashing weapon for a reason. And I wanted to prove that could be used in so many different capacities.
I imagine Jack Moody probably goes to bed at night and remembers the kendo stick.
I think anybody that was involved in that ladder match remembers how bad that kendo stick was.
Still one of the great matches I've ever had the pleasure of calling. That was outstanding.
Yes.
So I mean, nobody ever said you were retired. I mean, there's been no grand announcement. So you are open to the opportunity to return.
Yes, absolutely. I just been focusing on other things in my life at this time frame, but if someone wanted to book me, if someone wanted to book Zamiel, all you have to do is just contact me.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Just remember, you know what you're getting. Okay. Especially,
yes.
Well, Zamiel, you won't know what you're getting until it's done.
And speaking of knowing what you're getting, let's talk about the controversial Jarod Priest and the Demigod project.
Oh, crap.
My goodness, sir. On a Wednesday night, if you're around the 9:30, 10 o'clock hour, and if you're finding yourself with a little disposable time, you tune into Facebook and you will see the Demigod project. And sometimes you will be like, what am I listening to? Sometimes you will be like, I can't believe he just said that. Sometimes you'll be watching it and your wife will be in the other room also watching it, and you will hear her go, what did he say? and then have to explain why you're friends with the man.
Oh no, seriously? Oh, I don't mean to cause that discomfort upon you.
But anyways, tell me the motivate. I mean, the Demigod project back at the beginning and what it is now, it has gone through a blender in a mixer and is now something that just, I don't know if I can quantify what it is that you do, but you do it.
Okay. All right. When I first decided to do the Demigod project, I was going through a lot of personal issues at the time. I was dealing with a lot of personal problems, and being a person who is supposed to be a leader to other people, there's not many people you can actually talk to that's going to relate or understand, because here you are supposed to be this rock to everybody else, and you're trying to be selfless in a time when you should be selfish for yourself. But then it came to a point where you're like, you know what? I'm tired of, holding it all in. I was tired of like keeping it all in. And I finally like, you know what? I'll bring this live. And if people really want to know how I think and who I am as a person, or know and get some clarity about certain things, here I am. And for a good period of time, it was just basically a lot of venting of my frustrations and of things that were going on in my personal life. And I was just trying to work through those things. And then I started, like, after I got that all out of my system, like a master's wheel, your situation starts to contract. It starts to get smaller, and you start realizing, okay, I've said all the things I need to say. Now I need to comment on things of the world. Now I need to comment about things about people like who are online. I started talking about just different social topics, and I started talking about different movies and TV shows, or I would just go and start talking and then sharing my view of the world. Then something happened a few years ago.
Something happened, indeed.
Something happened.
We went from your love of Batwoman and and the fact that you like to take the red pill in the morning and the blue pill at night.
Oh, no. There's no blue pill at all, sir.
we went from the Halicon days of those to something I can't quantify.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it basically, in a nutshell, I started to look for more answers about why we behave the way we do, both men and women. I started trying to pay attention a little bit. Then I started seeing all this different content. And then I came across an individual that I still follow to this day that changed my entire mindset. And that became part of the red pill community, which is something that is very rarely, I will open the curtain about this. It's very rare I can talk about this stuff, because I'm not trying to preach this stuff to people. This is a whole praxeology of understanding the dynamics of men and women. Once I started learning about this stuff, I realized that the whole thing that I was taught from birth about men and women wasn't shit. It was all bullshit, Then you're faced with the dilemma, like Neo in the Matrix. It's like, here you take the blue pill, the story ends, and you go ahead and believe what you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And I just basically started realizing that you can either have two choices in life. You can either be the victim or you can be the victor. And then the important thing is to understand those dynamics, and more importantly, expose the lies of this world that were being told to the public and what's been told to people their entire lives. And it changed my entire mindset a couple of years ago, to the point where it was so shocking and so jarring that people were like, I can't believe he said this. He really said that? You can't believe, are you listening to this guy? And the thing is that people don't understand that
in this house.
God, I can't even imagine the conversations. But I started talking about all these different stories that are out there in the public eye that, one, for starters, is not really discussed in general legacy or mainstream media, or they're discounted. And it's astounding how men are, in the nutshell, are discarded or not appreciated or more or less shunned for being who they are, being men. And it started understanding more about like how women think, how they behave, how men have been taught to behave and think. And then I just started, you know what? I went through, there's certain stages you go through this, like learning this praxology, and there's a rage to it because you get so angry because you realize all the shit you were told when you were younger. It's all a premeditated attempt of programming and to control you. And when you started understanding that this was purposely said to us in a way, because here's the best part about this, and this is where I find very interesting. This is how important it is about knowing about this stuff. There was a writer who used to write for Cosmopolitan magazine. Her name was Sue Ellen Browder, and she wrote a book that was called Subverted. And she was around during the second wave feminism, where women were given the opportunity to, join the workforce, have reproductive rights, and so on and so forth. There were about 47 people that sat in an office, and one half was benevolent and thinking for the betterment of all women. The other half was, how can we capitalize where we can make women the eternal consumer, and not thinking for the benefit of women. And they were more or less trying to make women perpetuate delaying marriage, having children, and step away from actual instincts that's part of who their makeup and who their life is made consisted of, and told to conduct themselves as men. And the problem is this experiment has been going on for 60 years. And unfortunately, it has caused more harm than good. There are many women now that are much older who regret buying into the propaganda that is feminism. And I'm not saying that feminism is bad. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, basically, in a nutshell, is that any propaganda that's trying to make you feel good and try to tell you there's nothing but good stuff, but never tell you the fallbacks or the drawbacks of these type of decisions, that means they're trying to sell you something. And I feel like a lot of women were deceived in this situation, and men have been deceived as well. And it's a very interesting discussion about talking about this stuff, because now when I'm bringing it to attention, of course, the truth is jarring. Of course, it's supposed to be offset. That's how it's meant to be, because it's meant to make you go like, what? Because everything's been sugar-coated and softballed in for so long that people don't care. They think it's just like, oh no, that makes no sense. But when you actually give them the hard truth and people respond, then you have certain spouses yelling at it like, I can't believe you're friends with this guy. So
it's just the essence of the Demigod project in a nutshell. So tonight, as we recap, we had Zamiel, we had the Demigod, and we had woke Jarod Priest. So we have gone through the gamut of the personality of this man I call friend. Now, we talked about, will Jarod Priest ever get back in the ring? And you say, yes, there will be a time, there will be a place.
Mm-hmm.
C-Red and I share a common bond. We are working in a company, and we are what one would consider originals. I have used that term more than once. We are crash tested originals. You may remember the name.
OGs.
And there's a new wave of youngsters that think that the old guard should go away. So we've got a little bit of a quandary. And I was wondering if I could make a request.
What would that request be?
Well, I'm going to give you a few plot points, and I'd like you to give a certain someone Zamiel's impression of the situation.
You want Zamiel's take on something?
I want Zamiel's take, because whether it's the Demigod or whether it's Zamiel, you would be considered a CTW original.
All right.
And
Okay.
as a card carrying member of that particular faction right now in the new CTW, I just want to hear your take. So C-Red this past Friday was in ring action. He and Marche Rocket tag teamed against this up and coming tag team called CNC Destruction. You may have seen some of them before. I know you've worked with Chris Miller before.
Yes.
So, their manager is creating a faction called High Society. And it's a faction where, they're trying to take over and they're trying to usurp the company from owner Jed. A story you have seen time and time again. And they took liberties on C-Red and Marche Rocket and Turtle, Mike Brennan, in an effort to corrupt and become the rulers of the new crash tested universe. Another story you've seen before. So if at some point, somehow, some way, Zamiel had to discuss the comeuppance that might be coming to the high society people that are trying to take down the originals, I'm wondering what that might sound like.
Where the saying goes, the will to conquer is the first step to victory. However, in this situation, if you're so burdened to go ahead and try to take certain mantles or certain powers away, you better be able to deliver and scorch the earth. If not, the world will swallow you whole. And that's just not how life goes. And guess what? Life at moments is not fair. And there's going to be some unfairness being delivered a lot if you're not careful. Does that answer your question for you?
Can you say one more thing before we let you go? I just want you to, I'm gonna feed you the line and I just want you to deliver it. And if you decided to laugh at the end, no harm, no foul.
Okay, if we're going to do that, I do want to comment to the younger guys in this industry, especially with a comment before that. Tell you what, but we'll put a pen in that for a second. And C-Rad can back me up on this. Okay. What makes this business great is not one aspect of wrestling. It is everybody contributing, everybody of all shapes and sizes. Okay, that makes the business so unique. It's like going to a carnival and you see the world's strongest man or the bearded lady or the largest woman or the woman that lives without a head or the lion tamer or anything
Or the
like
man
that.
with the large red testicles.
Yes, graphic, but that will work. But anyway, the point is everybody contributes to this. C-Red could comment on this. There was a period of time when I was very young in the business. There was all this talk about strong style. There was all this talk about the cruiserweights trying to take over and all this different stuff like this. The cruiserweights were always like, we're the next step in this business. We're the evolution of this business. But the problem is, like a cruiserweight, your shelf life is extremely limited, especially with all the craziness you do in the ring, aka take a look at Blitzkrieg of WCW. That's the person I always reference in that situation who had the same mentality. Now he's in horrible shape because of all the crazy stuff that he did in the ring. Now we got the whole situation again where you still got, like, here's the thing. What you're saying is not original, okay? It's nothing unique. It's the same crap in a different fucking package. And take it from people who've been in this business longer. We know what we're talking about. You're just talking out of your ass and thinking, hey, I just discovered fire. I just made the wheel. No, you didn't. You're doing the exact same shit that we've seen 10, 15 years ago. And it's going to end in the same result. All you got to do is listen to your veterans. Let them guide you, tell you this, because one day you're going to be put in this position and your job is to preserve this company, this industry, this business, what makes it great. And then the important thing is to be able to understand that everyone plays a part in this business and what makes it great, and tell a story that people can connect with. There's a difference between when it looks like a fight between two opposing forces and then something that looks like a martial arts exhibition. And it's so annoying. Like someone said before, I don't care if you can do 15 minutes, 15 versions of a moonsault. Show me you can wrestle. Tell a story. I mean, Searid, what do you have to say about what I'm talking about? Do you have anything to comment on it?
No comment. No. I mean, dude, they don't understand. So I try to use the analogy. If you go to a restaurant, when you pick up a menu, right? There are different selections on the menu, right?
Right.
An appetizer, a main course, and a dessert. Now, most times, now I'm not gonna say all the times, but again, think about your favorite restaurant. You normally get an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert, right? Now, if you go to a restaurant, there is no appetizers, there is no desserts, and all they sell is a hamburger. No pickle, no mayo, no lettuce, just 2 pieces of bread and a patty. It might be the best hamburger in the world, but guess what? After a while, the restaurant is going to close. There's no variety. There's nothing different. You go and get a hamburger and that's it. And again, it's the greatest hamburger. But guess what? I might want to start my night off with some shrimp egg rolls. My main course, I might want steak, lobster, and fries or a baked potato. And for dessert, I might want a chocolate piece of cake. But if I go to that restaurant that just serves the hamburger, come on now.
Right.
So everybody doing, that's why my very first, well, not my very first, but my very second, third t-shirt I ever designed said no flippity flops. Because if I wrestle, guess what? I'm not risking my life to dive into a Dixie cup to entertain a damn soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not probably because I can't do it, but why should I? When guess what? Every show me and you are on, Jarod, every match Steve calls, guess what's gonna happen? Somebody, at least in 8 matches, the regular card is about 8 matches, 4 of them, if not more, flip, 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 no story.
Super kick, super kick, super kick. It's like it's part of their arsenal.
And it's like it bugs me, and Steve knows that I've went on this rant so many times.
Anytime.
Oh, and many times.
It just I'm tired. And maybe this actually plays a part into why I feel the way I do about Fridays, Steve. It's for the simple fact.
Now I kind of get it.
Because so when I wrestle, I like to be, I'm not gonna say the comedy relief, but I know if Jarod is on the show and he's wrestling Ace Bradley, I know they're going to give a hard contest. You know what I'm saying? Because that's their style. If Marche versus Jazz is on the show, you're gonna have some high flying, some technical. Again, you want variety.
Mhm.
So my particular style that I've just become equipped to doing is comedic wrestling. I ain't got to be super technical. Now, when I wrestle with Miles, hey, bro, that's your job. I'm gonna do the stupid stuff. I'm gonna do the stupid stuff. I'm gonna, trip over, somebody's foot and all this other stuff. Look like a fool, But so when I actually wrestled Friday night and realized in the middle of the match, I'm actually wrestling. There are no comedy spots. This is actually a wrestling match. I
I
was fish out of water.
I will never forget a comment from Jason Hades. What I love that dude. Love him. Great guy. He made a comment to somebody and it got back to me because in my match I pulled out a gut buster. And he actually said, when's the last time you've seen anybody do a gut buster in a match? I mean, that should tell you something, how important it is, especially about this art, this business, the ring psychology, to break down an opponent and stuff like that is so crucial. And people are just thinking, no, it's about the flash of the pan, it's about the moves and stuff like that. Think of it like this. All right. Um, you could be the greatest connoisseur of food. You can enjoy beluga caviar, you can have filet mignon, you can have seared lobster tails, and finish it off with a baked Alaska. But there's another part of me that wants to get a nice, good, thick, juicy double cheeseburger and drink it down with the two tall boys of beer. It's understanding exactly in that reference point how important it is to recognize your audience and recognize how important is what the fans respond to. I laughed my ass off every time I would go out there and wrestle, and you see all these guys killing themselves, doing all this crazy stuff, and you don't get any noise from the audience. But when someone like me or someone like yourself goes into the ring and we play this character up, we get this big, visceral, joyous response from the audience. Because why? Because we include them into the show. And these are the things that we get pops for and enjoyment from the audience because they're part of the show. And I feel like a lot of young guys don't understand this, is that the audience is the reason why you are performing. They are there to be entertained. You have to entertain them. This is your job, to entertain them. Look what happened to, like, for example, the reference, the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe. What does he do the first time he goes out there? He just kills these guys. He goes, "Are you not entertained?" And they're like, "No, you kill too quickly. You can't do that. You have to give the audience a reason to believe in you and support you.
Give them a show. You got to give them a show.
You got to give them a show. Exactly. Yeah, could I go in there and just club somebody and knock them out and be done with it? Absolutely, if I wanted to. But the important thing is to strategically and tactfully break somebody down, break an opponent down, is becoming a lost art. And I hate this part. I will never forget PCW when we brought in Sabu. I had a conversation with him right before he was going out through the curtain, how I felt like ring psychology was dead. And that was like 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago. And I can't even imagine the perspective right now. And I feel like a lot of trainers are more focused on teaching people the moves and not the reasons behind them. And that's what drives me crazy today. I don't know. What do you think, C-Red?
I agree. It's dead, and it ain't dead because we want it to be dead. It's dead because don't nobody want to listen. Everybody think they know it all. So
For
Yeah.
those of you out there watching this show tonight, I want you to rewind that little segment we just have. If you're starting a promotion, if you're a promoter, and if you're a wrestler, because you just heard some very, very interesting things there from two guys that have worked in many companies and have seen many things up and down the highways they've traveled.
To depend from that too, if you're going to be a promoter, if you're going to be a person who wants to start their own company, it's not about your vision. what you think the wrestling should be. It's what the fans want. And I'm not talking about these niche guys who pull up like Japanese wrestling and they're just like loving this one particular style of wrestling and whatsoever, that niche market. You want the general fans who bring their families to these things, who want to have a night out with their children, where basically you're not paying the outrageous prices of actually going to a movie theater, buying popcorn, and all this different stuff like this just to go see a movie with their family. They want to be able to be entertained, and you have to think about that. It's not about what you think the wrestling business should be. It's being able to provide a product where the fans can come see and enjoy themselves and enjoy a product that gets them involved. It's not about your vision. It's about what they are vision. And I feel like that's a lot of things that promoters forget, is that I've seen this so many times with all these companies who have come and gone. They're like, no, this is going to be my vision, and this is how the business should be. And then anybody else could test to that. They're wrong. And I'm just like, well, then why are you not still here? Why are you not here anymore? Why is your company gone? It's because you focus too much on what you think people should like instead of recognizing what the fans want.
Now, re-rack that and listen to that, because that's the gospel truth. That's the gospel according to C-Red and Jarod Priest. And you heard it right here on the Power Hour. Jarod, we want to thank you for giving us your time tonight after a long day's work. Yes, you have one more thing?
What's the Zamiel thing you want to do?
I'm gonna end the show on that. So I'm gonna say goodbye to you, and we're gonna thank you for your time and finally getting here with us, which means a lot to me. And we obviously appreciate everything you've brought. I certainly appreciate everything you've brought to my career.
Welcome.
That being said, next week our guest is one of the young guns at Crash Tested Wrestling, Michael Pierce, will be on this program. I want you, Jarod, to address a man named Cameron. And the line I want you to say in closing is very simple. And if you end it with a laugh, C-Red will be okay in the morning. I'd like you to say, if you keep messing in places you don't belong, then I'll see you in your nightmares.
Cameron, if you keep messing in places you don't belong, then I will simply see you in your nightmares.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Power Hour.